has the gentlelady from Indiana for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bienvenue, why did you join Climate Action 100? Why did your fund do that? What was the reason?
We viewed Climate Action 100 Plus as an opportunity for investors to get together and share ideas and figure out how to navigate, in our case, a $500 billion portfolio through a very uncertain future. And more information and more ideas and more discussion can only yield better investment decisions. So
generally, you think it's to sharing ideas, right? That's from your perspective?
It was definitely to share research. It was to share ideas. It was to just discuss an uncertain future that's a challenging, uncertain future.
So are you aware that actually on the website of this, it says the goal is to transform practices and policy that govern capital markets? Would you call it, as a business and investment professional, that's sharing ideas?
I'm not in the marketing department for Climate Action 100 Plus.
It's not a marketing department. You're part of this group, so you subscribe that you're going to be transforming practices and policies. I mean, if you're part of that group, then you are subscribing to this, whereas on their website, you're transforming practices and policies that govern capital markets. So you agree. That's a mission of the group you belong to.
Again, we make our decisions independently.
So you agree with that mission. You belong to that group. So that part of this you call as transforming practices and policies.
Our focus is on generating returns to pay pensions for generations.
I get it, but you're part of the group that states on their website they want to transform. Are you live in this group or are you staying with this group? They say on their website explicitly, we want to transform practices and policies that govern capital markets. So are you subscribing to this?
We believe a climate transition is happening and an energy transition needs to happen.
Transforming practices and policies. You stay behind this mission of this Climate Action 100. You stand behind the mission, transforming practices and policies on capital markets are governed.
We want every company to have a credible plan to navigate the climate transition. That way they can be profitable now, but they can be profitable 20 years from now and 50 years from now so that those profits can serve as cash flows back to our members so that we can pay pensions.
So as part of that, you are willing to collaborate with different companies with potential opening the risk of collusion. Have you ever looked into potential risk that it could be collusion when company owners get together and say, we're going to transform the markets. We are going to make sure that markets is going to change. Have you ever discussed a potential risk that you have by antitrust violations?
As I say, I'm not an attorney, I'm an investor.
But did you look at the investment risk? Did you look at that risk? Because you have to protect, you have fiduciary duty. So you open up yourself and your fund to risk. Have you ever assessed the risk that it could be potential antitrust violation?
We have gotten counsel, and everything that I know as an investor, I'm not an attorney, but I do have an economics background, both as a student and as a teacher. And everything that generated antitrust legislation was about anti-competitive behavior, and there is nothing anti-competitive that I know, and I can't even envision how anything could be unlawful with what goes on with Climate Action 100 Plus.
So generally, when you have companies getting together and try to change the rules on the market, the boards, and they have a joint efforts, you don't see that as a potential problem and a risk to your investment in your pension fund.
Every member of Climate Action 100 Plus, including ourselves, makes independent investment decisions.
But why did they join the group? Why couldn't you just do your independent decision? Why did you join the group?
We're a member of the New York Stock Exchange. Does that mean that we agree with everything they do? Yeah, but New York is like you don't
discuss how you're going to be changing the boards, doing all these actions, when you're part of New York Stock Exchange. Hopefully you don't. But maybe that's what New York Stock Exchange already doing by now. It seems like SEC is. So I'm just saying, you actually have a goal that you collude, you agree to sit down and achieve. Do you think it's a potential risk?
We independently make every decision that we make, whether it's proxy voting or investment decisions or engagement decisions. Every decision is independent.
When they coordinated, it's a potential risk. Ms. Lauber, I have a question for you. You said climate change is a systematic financial risk. And I'm not going to argue. Climates have been changing. We used to have ice ages, how it's contributed. We're not going to science. But you've noticed a lot of this new industry using a lot of slave labor, like in China, or DRC in Africa, are you willing to say that, if we want to decrease or whatever, change something with fossil fuels, we're willing to increase use of slave labor or Chinese operation without any transparency? Do you think you would do it at expense?
No.
So you're willing to bring more transparency? What's happening in China and with slave labors? Is your fund ever doing that, or you only worry just take down companies?
A strong tenet of what we do is seek more disclosure. And what you're
So you're willing to have more disclosure what on Chinese operations of companies that using that, or more disclosure of what slave labor and use in some rare earth minerals and use in China? So you're willing to put that, because I haven't seen that.
Well,
so your fund is going to be as advocated for the boards to have more disclosures on that?
Absolutely. There is no justification. I mean, the practices that you're talking about are highly unacceptable, and I think they should be looked at and disclosed as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank the gentlelady from Indiana. I ask unanimous consent to submit for the record a document that was referenced